Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast may contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, be sure to check out our show on our YouTube channel. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show.
Since I met you, we've watched some hairy movies, but reviewing Lethal Weapon 4 is not gonna happen. I'm gonna be 52. You just turned 51. This movie ain't worth suffering for, Joe. It ain't worth it.
Yeah, you're right. I'm getting too old for this shit, too.
The series just turned too damn bad.
Yeah, well, they did turn out bad. But how did that happen? We can't know until we close the series. I mean, they took the series apart with 2 tone-deaf movies. How did they do that, huh? I mean, how?
Yeah. Okay, let's go figure it out. I am David, he is Joe, and this is episode 161. And in this show, we will discuss Twilight of the Mallrats is an actual thing. Like, it's in pre-production. It's going to happen. I've run out of words. Jared Leto is back as the Joker in the Snyder Cut of Justice League. Oh, the train wreck grows larger. David Fincher and Netflix have teamed up and are bringing us Gary Oldman as Mank. The first trailer has dropped and Joe and I take a look. And then, the painful slide from brilliant to what the F ends. Joe and I close out the Lethal Weapon series with our review of Lethal Weapon 4. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing good under the circumstances. Survived Lethal Weapon 4. Interesting. I literally haven't seen it in years. Possibly I saw it once and that was it. So, yeah, should be interesting to talk about this one.
Yeah, interesting is definitely the word. It's a word. It is most certainly a word for sure. I'm not 100% sure how I feel, but I guess we're gonna figure it out because we're gonna go for it. We're definitely here. I've had a lot of mixed emotions about it, and well, let's get started.
Look, do yourself a favor, Brody. Don't wait, because all the money, all the women, even all the comic books in the world, they can't substitute for that one person.
I don't know, all the comics in the world?
Trust me, true believer.
Kevin Smith officially announces a sequel to Mallrats called Twilight of the Mallrats. He says he's got the cast back and has a scene with Stan Lee in it.
Okay. I guess he started this a while back, or just some old footage?
I'm assuming old footage. Maybe he's pulling some kind of weird Ed Wood with Bela Lugosi thing. That's the kind of thing I'm thinking of, where he just kind of shot a bunch of stuff and now he's making a movie around that shot footage. Are we having a Plan 9 from outer space type situation? I don't know. I got to be honest with you. Full disclosure, Kevin Smith is from New Jersey. Joe and I are both from New Jersey, and he's always had a soft spot with us. But to be completely honest with you, the man has slid, and I really feel like maybe he should just stick to podcasting. I think his glory days as a director and writer are done. Like, Tusk was okay. I actually did kind of like Red State. I thought Red State was really good because it was really different from him. But Yoga Hosers, Jay and Silent Bob reboot have not been enjoyable at all. And after the surprising greatness of Bill and Ted Face the Music, does he really think he could equal or even top that with this long gestating sequel of Mallrats? I gotta say, I'm not excited.
I am so not excited. Not only am I not excited, but I'm kind of feeling like, Kevin, stop doing this to yourself. I mean, I sort of feel like the last time, and you're absolutely correct, that you and I have had sort of a Kevin Smith soft spot. As a budding filmmaker, he does Clerks, and every kind of young wannabe filmmaker looks at this and is like, oh my God, look what he did. This was so incredible. It's, it's funny, it's got heart, and wow, it's zero budget, etc. So you kind of watched him sort of blossom, and it was always a bumpy road at best. There were kind of things that he was doing well, some things that he was missing the mark on. But I'll just say it. I mean, that I think the last time I giggled at a Kevin Smith film was Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and I think it was easily listed under guilty pleasure. I mean, that was certainly a guilty pleasure movie. And honestly, when I saw the reboot, I saw the commercials and I was like, oh, this doesn't look good. And I remember telling you that Jason Mewes really did look like a geriatric crackhead at this point. Like maybe we just shouldn't even do this. So yeah, and the reboot thing. I mean, when I finally saw it, I don't even know if I made it halfway through. I said this is just too painful to watch. It was so dismal. And honestly, so yeah, I'm not feeling anything for this Mallrats. I mean, seriously, I don't even know. Like, let me ask you, would you, the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, would you call that a Clerks sequel?
No. Sort of. There were elements of, from Clerks and Clerks 2 that were in it, but not enough to really define it as such. I just found it pedantic.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I remember even the Clerks 2. I don't even know if I actually saw it. I think I saw parts of it. So
it wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible, but it definitely, I felt like it undercut the Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back closing of the universe that he just can't seem to keep closed,
Right. Yeah, that's right. So I kind of feel like we did that. It was passable. Then he did Jay and Silent Bob reboot. It's awful. And now he's going to try to do it again with a different film. Again, still kind of in the same universe. I don't know. I already feel like I'm wasting too much breath over this. It's just such a bad idea. And I really wish, you're right. I mean, Kevin Smith, he really did find a different level of popularity once he started doing this kind of talk circuit. And I remember the first An Evening with Kevin Smith. See, but this is the problem. Kevin Smith, he doesn't know when the joke is over. Like, tell the joke, make people laugh, go home. He's kind of like that guy at the party who just won't leave. Like, and he's still kind of doing the same jokes. And it's like, dude, we heard it already. Like, you were funny, but now stop. So I remember even like An Evening with Kevin Smith was dynamite. Like, it was great. It was like his best of from his talks at different colleges, etc. And it was brilliant. It was genius. And you're like, wow, this guy all of a sudden, like, he had a whole different persona. Then he did more of those. And I remember watching, there was one, like, again, I saw the first one, loved it. So then I saw there was another one. I'm watching it. And he spends 20 minutes telling a story about smoking pot, getting really high, ordering food, and taking a shit. And it took him 20 minutes to get through this story. And I'm like, dude, it's all right. It looked like we all got those stories. You're funny, but put a knife in it already. It's done. So yeah, I like I said, I kind of feel like he really just struggles with new ideas and moving on to different things and he just keeps milking the same stuff. So and how could you even do, like, Mallrats was kind of like an 80s thing, like I kind of feel like it was sort of the concept following Clerks, following like just dudes who hang around at the local convenience store. All right, you took it up a notch. Kids were hanging out at malls and stuff. I get it. But in 2020, you're going to do Mallrats again. I really, have I made my point that I don't really feel very excited for this?
Oh, calm it, Daddy.
Pardon?
Listen, you are my gift to this handsome hunka. You belong to him now.
You're cute. You want me? I'm all yours.
I don't want no beef.
You want no beef? You don't want
Why,
no
what's
beef?
wrong?
You don't want no beef?
You don't like me? Fine, don't waste my time then.
Jared Leto is back as the Joker. This is almost like masochistic of him or egotistical of him. I can't decide which. Because after the brilliant portrayal by Joaquin Phoenix, I mean, this is how you're going to follow it up with, mob boss damaged? I mean, seriously, this. Oh, it's going to be so much fun to review Justice League. I really, really, really feel like it's going to be just a pip to review.
Is this now? Let me get this straight because I'm still fuzzy. Is he coming back for the Justice League Zack Snyder cut?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's back. Supposedly, the guy who played Deathstroke in the cutscene at the end of the movie. Supposedly, he's coming back too.
Are they filming new scenes?
Yeah, they are. They are filming new scenes. For
the Snyder Cut.
For the Snyder Cut, yes, they are.
Okay.
Yes, they are. I got seriously. The Schadenfreude with me is so damn high. It's not even funny. I can't wait to see this. Not because I think it's going to redeem anything, but because I truly believe that with the ego on display from Zack Snyder, that this is going to make Batman v Superman look like high freaking art. That is my feeling right now.
Listen, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say it right here. I'm going to go as far to say, not only am I intrigued by this, but I'm expecting, dare I say, greatness? Am I really going to put myself out there? I don't know. I really have this funny vibe about this, that it's going to be fascinating and just kind of downright good. I'm really looking forward to this, believe it or not. I kind of feel like, when you see a bad movie, right? You see a bad movie, you don't think anything of it. It's kind of fascinating how bad it is, maybe a little bit. But then later, you start to get into the documentaries about it, the behind the scenes stuff, and that's 10 times more fascinating. I almost feel like this project has the ability to be sort of both things at once. A completely redeemed project that is actually pretty good in its own right, and by some sort of weird proxy, a commentary on what went wrong. So I really do kind of feel like this really does have some interesting potential.
Dude, I love your Pollyanna view of the world. I am seriously. I am. That's great. I am very happy that you have the capabilities of just, letting go of all that has come before and try to judge simply on what is presented rather than what has come before. I am extremely pleased. Okay, good for you. A part of me wishes I could do that, but I can't. I've had enough of the abuse of all things DC related, especially when it comes to Zack Snyder, thinking he knows how to. It's like, we were talking about Kevin Smith earlier, and you remember the infamous story from Kevin Smith about how he was talking with John Peters and how they were going to make the ultimate Superman movie because they were from the street. It's the same impression I'm getting every time with every new tidbit of information about Zack Snyder's attempt with Justice League. I mean, again, I'll be there. I'll be there. I'm not going to be as hopeful as you. I will definitely be with my arms crossed in front of my head, my chest, and huge chip on my shoulder, and I'll be like, "Knock it off, Zach. Knock the chips off my shoulder. I will gladly concede if you do, but I don't see it happening."
I'll tell you what. I'm literally going to go on the record and say this. If you and I still lived within 20 minutes of each other, I'd be betting you like the first round of drinks or something. So I'm like, I'll bet you 50 cents or I'll bet you whatever you want. But I'm literally going to go on record now and say, look, I have a hunch that this thing is genuinely going to be a satisfying experience where you watch this whole thing through. Like, I mean, put it this way. It's going to be episodic. You could, if it's terrible, you could watch 1 and 2 and be like, no, don't need to see the rest of it. I got a hunch you will watch this whole thing through. By the time you get to the end, you're still going to be enthralled by it. I'm pitching it as going to be something. And look, they are not going to. This is not going to magically treat these characters the way they should be treated. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that akin to stuff like The Watchmen, kind of like The Boys, it will be a deconstructing story. You're going to probably see characters do things that you would not expect them to do, etc. But I do think, in line with those other films, series, you're going to watch this and you're going to be like, this is interesting. This is fascinating. And I really do. I'm very curious to see what happens next.
I'm doubtful, but you know what? As we get closer, once they say when the release date is, we will make a bet. We will absolutely, positively make a bet.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Mank, it's Orson Welles.
Of course it is.
I think it's time we talk.
What is it the writer says? Tell the story you know.
Herman J. Mankiewicz, probably his best known thing is being the screenwriter for Citizen Kane. But it's funny because he's got over 90 credits as a writer. 90 credits for many different movies, some that I've never even heard of. But he also did some rewrites for many, many flicks. And David Fincher has chosen his story, as his next movie, Mank. And that is the trailer of the movie that we just watched. So, Joe, I know a little bit about Mankiewicz because I'm a huge Orson Welles / Citizen Kane fan. So, what was your impression as you were watching this trailer, please?
Well, I won't lie. I mean, I heard the name before. I don't know anything about his background, his story to really kind of, have a big opinion on it. I didn't watch it and go, oh my God, I can't wait to see this. But it looked really good. I mean, the look of the film was great. So I have, and I liked Gary Oldman. I thought, he looked like he sat around and drank a lot of beers to get ready for this role. Like, this was hardly like he didn't, obviously this is not about a guy who's in perfect shape, who's on the top of his game, etc. Maybe he's going through some stuff. So it certainly looks pretty fascinating. So that's kind of all I can say at this point. And I did like the style of the trailer, by the way, to give it that kind of, period feel.
Indeed. One of the fascinating, I think the fascinating angle that they're going for is, Citizen Kane is loosely based on William Randolph Hearst. Amanda Seyfried is playing Marion Davis, who was Hearst's mistress or whatever you want to call it. She was very good friends with Mankiewicz. So I'm kind of wondering if that's the story that they're really to go with, which is the shattering of this friendship that occurred because of his part in Orson Welles' Citizen Kane. I mean, there was a whole huge thing about Citizen Kane, and Hearst tried so hard to stop that movie from coming out. So that's the story that I'm really curious about. And that's and I figure if anybody's going to pull it off, it's Fincher. And stylistically, yes, it looks amazing. The trailer itself is not a great trailer. It doesn't. I mean, I understand they're trying to hold back, but there was no hook. Like, for me, I was hooked simply because I knew they were doing it about Herman Mankiewicz. But for the average consumer, I don't see them getting all excited. It's like, well, what is the point of this? This looks like some actor, doing masturbatory acting work and stuff like that. And it's like, no, there's actually a really great story here that, if they do it right, could be really, really interesting.
Yeah, and I that all sounds good to me, frankly. Yeah, right. I mean, as a guy who doesn't know a whole lot about it, I get it, but I think your average movie fan is probably going to watch this for David Fincher. Just like, oh my God, it's Fincher's next thing. And I haven't missed a Fincher thing yet, so I'm there.
They just bounced right off, and we're in trouble, man. Here's what we're gonna do: take your clothes off. What the hell for? Lambo here turns, sees you in your undies, it distracts him, and that's when I shoot. Shoot what? The valve of that napalm tank. Hey, you gonna hit that little bitty valve before he shoots me? I don't know, maybe. Well, baby. Have I ever given you a bump, dear? Come on, Raj, trust me. Trust you? Come on, show him what you got. Show him what you're not. Hey, Riggs, hey, you think that bird thing helped?
No, I just wanted to see if you'd do it. Cute short, son.
With personal crisis and age weighing in on them, LAPD officers Riggs and Murtaugh must contend with deadly Chinese triads that are trying to free their former leaders out of prison and onto American soil. Written by Channing Gibson, based on a story by Jonathan Lemkin, Alfred Goh, and Miles Miller, based on characters created by Shane Black, directed by Richard Donner, Lethal Weapon 4. Have you ever watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
I have not, but I can't tell you how many people have told me I should be watching it.
Okay. I have watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It is a funny show. So one of the things that they did on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia was they did sequels to Lethal Weapon with the various characters playing the parts. And what was funny about it, of course, was like literally characters would be in blackface, to play Murtaugh and everything like that. It was just like completely out there, inappropriate type situations. And then like in the middle of shooting, it would be decided that two of the characters would switch and one would be Riggs and one would be Murtaugh. Anyway, my point being, the reason I'm bringing this up is for people out there who really want to have an enjoyable Lethal Weapon experience, seek out the episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where they make sequels to the Lethal Weapon movies, because it's better than this movie.
I just might have to do that now. I might have to look for that.
This
let it out, my friend.
Oh, this is not going to be my therapy. This was frustrating. This was frustrating as hell. Because the first thing I'd like to mention, the first positive thing I'd like to mention is I liked Jet Li. I don't think it's his fault. I liked his energy. I liked that at least he came across as menacing, and at other moments kind of like, actually like with acting. Like there was a scene in the movie where he meets up with the four guys that they're trying to free, and the way he reacted upon seeing them, because obviously they were family of some sort, was nice. It was a nice little subtle thing. It wasn't overdone. It was just like, I haven't seen you in years. It was nice and everything like that. And every time he kicked and jumped and everything like that, it was just always so damn impressive. To me, at least.
Yes. And let me tell you, my good friend, I've had many people say to me the same thing where Lethal Weapon 4 comes up and they'll say, yeah, but Jet Li was really good. I really like Jet Li in this.
I'm not forgiving the movie for it. I'm just pointing it out, but please continue.
Understood. And my response to that is usually, yeah, me too. Well, why don't we just throw E.T. flying across the moon in this movie too? Because I really like that. How about the last scene from Rogue One where Darth Vader down the hallway? Let's throw that in here too. That was pretty kick-ass, right? I'm joking to make a point. I agree with you. The Jet Li stuff was fine, but in terms of trying to review a Lethal Weapon movie, The fact that you threw in something that frankly doesn't feel like a Lethal Weapon movie, it's cool on its own, as its own thing, no problem. But yeah, it just feels like this has nothing to do with Lethal Weapon. It's so moronic. And honestly, it takes us back to our good friend Jeffrey Boehm, who is now, last one too, he's in complete control of the story, of the script, and it just feels like, again, a guy who, watched Lethal Weapon and said, oh, okay, I get certain parts of it, and they wedge in these just kind of typical 80s, 90s action movie stuff, and it's like, it's just so stupid, so dumb. So I almost find the Jet Li stuff, I kind of feel like it's not even really a net positive for me, because it literally just feels like they just took snippets of a different movie, a Jet Li movie, and stuck it in here to try to give you something interesting to look at, because Lord knows we're not getting it from Rings and Murtaugh. In fact, Rings and Murtaugh are now, by their own definition, so old that honestly, my one takeaway from this film is why does this film exist? Why is it here? Why did anybody feel that we needed this movie? Like, in the movie itself, they're saying Riggs is too old to even hold his own against just a regular rookie guy in the boxing ring. I mean, Riggs, the whole name of the movie is Lethal Weapon, for crying out loud. So what the movie has basically, by its own definition, completely run out of steam. It's run out of steam. The air is out of the tires. What are we doing here? It's shockingly stupid, shockingly dumb, and I frankly can't find one redeeming thing about it. And again, like I said, the Jet Li on its own is fine, but it just seems so wedged in here that I don't even call that a plus.
I can understand your feelings, sir. I honestly do understand your feelings. Right? All I was trying to do was just throw out something positive, just something positive. All right. I realize that I'm digging through a haystack and finding like the rustiest, crappiest needle of all time. Yeah. But it's still something I felt strong enough to point out because, hey, at this point,
well, you can't, right? Yeah, you can't not talk about it. I mean, it's there. It's part of the movie. It's there, and it's entertaining.
Yes,
I mean, Jet Li is good.
Yes, he absolutely is entertaining. So, the first thing I just want to say is, Jet Li, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
The second thing I want to say about the movie is, did Trey Parker and Matt Stone get the name from Chris Rock's character in this movie? Because every time he came on the screen and he said Butters, all I could think of, I thought it was pretty good.
I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be at all surprised, because if memory serves, probably South Park happened right around this time, so I wouldn't be shocked. I almost feel like that's something that they would do, and like just Chris Rock in this movie, everything about his presence, it would totally lend itself to like, I got to use that name for this kid who's just a total screw up.
Yeah, but the funny part, Butters character isn't a total screw up. He's just a naive little child. And I mean, what was the point of Chris Rock's character besides being Rianne's baby daddy? Because
God.
Because like they had this scene that happened between him and Leo that I think I wrote down was like the screeching halt of a dying elephant's last gasp of comedy. It's like, if that was the whole point, was to get these two together, it's like it made no sense. That's the thing. The Leo Getz character, at least he was established to be an annoying person. You were trying to get Butters to be liked. You were trying to get him to be liked. And, the whole homosexual, flirting with Roger, bull stuff aside. It's like, you completely kneecap the character again. And Chris Rock, I love Chris Rock as a comedian. This is not some of his finest work. This is terrible work. Terrible work. He had zero presence, zero personality. It's like you wound up with Rianne, like the hot daughter. You wound up with her, really? Really?
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm so glad you brought that up because I had the same vibe from that scene, and I said to myself, I mean, it shows you basically what these movies are at this point, because like say what you want about Lethal Weapon 2, Leo Getz was a character. He was an actual character in a story. Here, everyone is just there to just show up and perform. It's just ridiculous. It's like and that scene is a perfect example of like it's kind of like that part in the movie where, like in every Robin Williams movie, where it could be a totally serious movie, but they're like, oh, but we got Robin Williams, we have to have him do his shtick. So they wedge in some scene where he starts doing characters, right? It could be anything from Mrs. Doubtfire to Dead Poet Society. There's always at least one scene where he just breaks out and does voices. And that's all this was, right? And I remember just the presence of Chris Rock, like as soon as even before you even saw the film, you just saw his, like, it's like, oh my God, are you kidding? Like he is a slapsticky kind of a comedian. Like he's a full-blown comedian. Any movie I've ever seen him in, even if it's a small part, he's there to do his comic stuff. So you were kind of just waiting for it. And yeah, it's like, why is he here? It's just like, again, it's so silly at this point.
And that's still not even the worst of it. That is still not even the worst of it. Like you said from the start, movie's name is Lethal Weapon. Who is the Lethal Weapon? Is Jet Li supposed to be the Lethal Weapon? No.
Right.
Because he's obviously not the Lethal Weapon because, even though he's taken out so many people with ease with these incredible moves and stuff, like another big problem with the movie is the fact that Jet Li is like seen to be like super powered. Meanwhile, they're paralleling the story about how Riggs is losing it because he's getting up there in age and stuff like that. So you're telling me what I'm assuming is now the pushing 60-year-old Murtaugh and the now 40-something-year-old Riggs is going to take out 30-something fast as lightning Jet Li, even working together. I find that entire thing doubtful. It just it loses credibility when it comes to, and that's really what this movie is. It's like the underlying theme, the loss of credibility. They have these stunts. One of the things I've said about from the beginning with this series is that I really appreciate just how much they do the practical effects with the stunts. And I still did. And I was still like, wow, that was neat. They fired that truck up in the air with the explosion, made the tires go underneath everything. That looked great. Wow. When they're on the highway and they're doing that thing where they're pushing him into the plastic and stuff like that. Wow, that looks great. And look, now he's being dragged behind on a table. Wow, that looks great. But it's soulless.
Since I met you, I done some hairy shit. But this not gonna happen. I'm gonna be a grandfather. You and Lorna gonna have a baby. He ain't worth dying for, Riggs. He ain't worth it.
Yeah, you're right. Hey, if he gets away, we can track him down later on with a howitzer or something.
Yeah.
Your son-in-law's in there bleeding. We should get him and get the hell out of here anyway. It's raining.
That shit is raining.
I'm too old for this shit, too.
Yeah. Guy's too damn good.
Well, yeah, he's damn good. I mean, how did he do that thing with a gun? How the hell did he do that? I mean, he took my gun apart with one deft move. How did he do that? Huh? How?
Yeah? Okay. Let's go ask him.
me just go back to what you said about Riggs and Murtaugh taking on him at the end. Right. Murtaugh at the end in the climax of the first Lethal Weapon was over the hill. The whole point was that he was over the hill. So like when they finally bust out of captivity and Riggs is racing down the street chasing the guy and Murtaugh is ready to pass out, he's staggering down the street. That was completely realistic. It was believable. That made perfect sense. And now how many films later, Murtaugh, he's way the hell over the hill. He's literally about to be a grandfather. And now they're going to jump into a fight with the ultimate fighter. What is happening? It just doesn't make any sense. I don't understand it. Yeah, right. And again, like I complained in the last film that Riggs it has turned into a total just jerk, really, for lack of it. Yeah, I'll tell you this, and I'm going to bounce around a little bit. I remember even early on when they did that really, again, the film is so silly. See, it's funny because I remember when you and I were talking a little bit, and you said you had some things to say. And I was like, well, good, because I'm struggling to find anything to say about it. Because, whereas in 3, there were so many things that were just so blatantly wrong, it was very easy to pick apart those things and say, here's what, this was wrong, and that was wrong, and that was wrong. This one, the whole thing is just feels like it's meant to be an action comedy. I kind of feel like the action in this film is kind of like calling Home Alone an action comedy. Like it's like the same slapsticky sort of movement qualifies as action, whatever. This has just got the same kind of tone to the point where when they opened up with that stupid, they did the bit with, first of all, I'm not even going to talk about the RoboCop guy with the flamethrowers. Just again, what is that? Nothing about this is reality in a real world, etc. It's just all slapstick, weird, funny, whatever, trying to be funny, not actually funny. But then when they got to the point where it was the three of them, it's Riggs, Murtaugh, and Leo on the boat, and they have the big rubber shark on the boat. And I'm already saying to myself, this is so, it's kind of beyond stupid, right? The shark looks like it's a rubber shark already. How did they get it on the boat? You're really telling me that Leo pulled that onto a boat? I doubt it. But then at one point, Leo starts dropping F-bombs, right? He starts just doing his shtick and shouting, blah, 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 and a lot of F-bombs get dropped. And it actually sort of jolted me awake a little bit because I was saying to myself, wait a minute, that's a lot of F-bombs. And I realized, shouldn't this be a PG-13 movie? Why make this a rated R movie at this point? You're obviously making a movie that's meant to appeal to teenage boys. People are going to just giggle at the jokes and, oh, this was cool. Oh, that was cool. Why make it a rated R movie? This is not for grown-ups. So honestly, I just said to myself, it was just odd hearing the F-bombs because I thought this should be a kid's movie. I don't even see. I feel like, again, the level of humor is on par with Home Alone. So I really don't get why they just didn't make the effort to say, okay, look, we'll cut out the F-bombs and make it PG-13 and we'll appeal to the youngsters. Youngsters, how old am I? So, but that's kind of my sort of feel of this whole movie. It's again, it's no longer meant to be at all a serious cop movie. It's not meant to be the action is lame. So I just sort of don't get who this is for. And by the way, I feel like if anything, it's also one of those movies that makes me scratch my head and say, Richard Donner directed all 4 of these movies. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying to myself, how did he let this get to this point? I guess, look, if a studio says, look, here's what we want and you're going to do it. And if you don't do it, we'll find somebody else. He's probably been down that road before with the Superman series. And he says, look, it's going to turn to garbage and someone else is getting paid for it. I might as well get paid for it. I guess that's the feeling behind it. But honestly, it made me sort of, I think, especially back then, it made me feel like I felt like for a movie like this, I felt like usually I'd see the poster and I'd see a different director and I'd be like, okay, that explains why it's terrible. But you got Richard Donner in all 4 films, and the tone is just all the hell over the place. So I don't know.
Here's the way I look at it. If Lethal Weapon 3 was tonally bipolar, which I feel is proper. Bipolar is basically where you can't really control when your emotions are going to go into certain directions. This movie is tonally schizophrenic, whereas you don't know when you're going to turn still, but there's like at least a process that leads to that turn. So they tried. They did. They really, really tried to make things flow from here, there, and where a little bit better than they did Lethal Weapon 3. I'm not saying it makes it a better movie. I'm just saying that's what I noticed. I noticed that at least they were trying to make things flow a little bit better, as opposed to Lethal Weapon 3, where it just feel like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. At least, to me, it felt like the steps that went in made sense in a logical perspective. Like the whole plan of the guy from the third movie, I still couldn't even figure it out what his deal was. At least here there was a reason for the conflict. There was the reasons, there was motivation, everything like that. So in that respect, it's slightly better than Lethal Weapon 3, but it also had to take what Lethal Weapon 3 gave us in terms of how its comedy, and I'm doing that with air quotes as I say that word, is presented, and trying to make that, fit. And the problem is that, like, you had the fall from grace start with Lethal Weapon 2, and not as terrible, though, because it was very small. It was subtle. It was because all of a sudden everybody loved Leo Getz. So with Lethal Weapon, well, then we're going to have to give him more Leo Getz and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden everything just went comedy crazy, like stupid nuts. And that by the time I got to this, it's like, okay, well, we need to get back to basics a little bit. It's like you couldn't even do that. You couldn't even bring it back to the basics of what the real story was, which, as you said, was the Lethal Weapon. So yeah, I feel tonally schizophrenic is a proper way to define Lethal Weapon 4, because what you have here is a person that has been driven insane, that you're trying to make sense of, and none of it works. None of it works. I felt nothing. Like, you were pointing out in the last podcast about how Riggs is kind of an asshole. So, they sort of dialed it back, but not enough. He still came across as an asshole. A lot of times he came across as an asshole. Not even in that cute, quirky way, which is what they were trying for it to be. No, he just came across as a real asshole. And there were points in the movie where I was like, hit him harder. That's not what you want. You don't want a person saying about the hero, hit him harder.
Right. Seriously, right? Right. How do you know when you've lost your audience? Well, when they're actively rooting for the heroes to get hurt, then yeah, probably not.
I was just yeah, go on.
Yeah. Well, and you said a lot, I'm with you the whole way. I see. It's interesting that, like, I thought on one hand, I think I thought I was going to like the idea of the human trafficking, right? And I thought the like Roger starts to say something in the beginning about, like, well, I can do some good here. I'm freeing slaves and by the way, and he says something like, like no one did for my ancestors. I'm like, actually, a lot of people did for your ancestors, which is why we don't have slavery anymore. But anyway, I said to myself, like, all right, they're kind of trying to get back into that kind of social commentary like they did with Lethal Weapon 2. And I thought, and back in Lethal Weapon 2, again, I thought it was handled well. I thought, okay, this is a good idea for bad guys. It's not just, drug dealers and they suck and we're going to take them out. Like, it was somebody doing something that had some, like, kind of sort of real life social consequences. Okay. So I was kind of rooting for that in the beginning, but then it just went off the rails so fast. Like, he literally moves an entire family into his house as if no one's going to notice. And even Riggs says, dude, you can get into a lot of trouble for this. I'm saying to myself, yes, Roger, you can get into a lot of trouble for that. I'm sure that you are a cop. You have some pull. And again, it's like the clowning around with now you're captains, now you're sergeants, now you're whatever. It's like, I mean, it's like, I feel like this is like when Mr. Spacely would just fire George Jetson every episode. You know? I mean, it was just, oh, now you're demoted, now you're promoted. It's whatever. So it was, again, like not realistic. It's not happening in a real world. But okay, Roger, you're a high up in the police department. I'm sure if you did this the right way, I mean, they're not going to keep these people in jail. So I'm sure that you could probably say, look, while they're still trying to while we're figuring out what to do with them, whatever, I'm going to keep them with me so they have a place to be. I just everything about, again, it's just so childishly written. I just felt like at every turn they're doing something the wrong way. And I'm saying to myself, like, I feel like somebody with a little more common sense could have written this or could have given it a couple of rewrites or whatever and made it work. Like, so that's why I say, I mean, I just feel like this film is simply meant to appeal to children. I mean, like the scene where, honestly, that was so irritating. They go into, first of all, I guess Chinatown is nothing but Chinese restaurants because they seem to have, the scene starts at a Chinese restaurant, ends in another Chinese restaurant. The sort of big chase in Chinatown. They go to see Big Daddy or whatever they called the guy, the Chinese guy who
Uncle Benny. Uncle Benny.
There you go. Yeah, and I get a good actor or whatever. But they go to see him. He's got this back room with the big window, and again, it's like again, Jeffrey Baum saw 1 and 2. He saw the scene where Murtaugh shoots the big fish tank.
Okay, I got to stop you there. I just got to remind you, Jeffrey Baum did not write this movie. He had no involvement with this.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you are 100% correct. You're absolutely right. I'm picking on him, and it shouldn't be.
No. This is by the guys who did the that CW series Smallville.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good.
Okay.
All right. So fair enough. You're absolutely right. I want to pick on the right people. So, yeah. So they, all right. Okay. So they're trying to recapture that. So they do this bit where they go into his office, and then they for no reason, he just smashes the big giant glass two-way mirror. And it's like, again, but why? I mean, like again, it just doesn't make sense. It's like, it's kind of typical tropey stuff. It's something that can happen, but it doesn't make any sense. I don't get why he would do that. And again, no ramifications. Like, if you do that, if you damage property in front of all those witnesses who are people who are sitting in the restaurant, then they can legitimately call the cops and say, these people just destroyed my business. Well, the thinking is that because they're bad guys, they can't call the cops, but they can if you're that blatant about it. So, I mean, it's just so silly. It's just so absurd. And again, it just watching Riggs chase this guy through town and then he ends up hanging off the building. And it's like, man, it really is just so weak and lame. And honestly, nothing in there working. And by the way, I almost feel like there's sort of like a secret formula where whoever's writing the script says, okay, look, we need to do personal family stuff. Okay. So we have to have like the personal developments of the characters. Okay. So Lorna's having a baby. We'll make Rianne have a baby, and et cetera, et cetera. We got to have some comedy, right? Okay. Well, let's bring in Chris Rock and he'll do some funny scenes. And we got to come up with the script. Bad guys. Okay, let's do the social thing like we did with Lethal Weapon 2. So we'll do trafficking. And it's just from there, it's very just paint by numbers. Check. And even the scene where they burn the house down, I'm saying, like, again, that feels like it's right out of the last few movies. I feel like if you're Murtaugh's wife, you'd be living in New Jersey by now. Like, what are they still doing living in that house?
She's a writer now. She's a writer now. Don't you know?
Oh, right. It's just more silly nonsense. Right. So seriously, they had their daughter kidnapped in the first one from that house. They had a drug dealer crash into the house. By the second one, a bomb went off in the house. By the third one, there was another scene where they got tied up in the third one, I think, or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm confusing them all now. But by this point, wouldn't you just leave that house, for crying out loud?
Dude, so much doesn't make sense. You went off on a rant about the frickin' mirror that they cracked. Didn't they get promoted to captain to avoid insurance stuff? I mean, wasn't that part of the whole thing? They got promoted to captain for the length of the movie, only to get busted back down to sergeant just to put back everything to the status quo. This movie is, again, I'm going back to my original statement, totally schizophrenic. It has no idea what the hell it wants to be. It follows a thread, but its thread is insane. This is, anybody who says, and I'm going to call it right now. I'm going to say it right here, right now. I'm going to say it without shame. I have actually read some people say, what a fitting way to end the series. It's like, no. 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 It is not a fitting way to end the series. And it's not even a fitting way to end the illustrious career of Richard Donner. Okay? He did 2 movies after this. He did Timeline and 16 Blocks after this, and that's it. Since 2006, this man has not directed a movie. This is the man who gave us the frickin' Omen. This is the man who gave us Superman, The Goonies, the first Lethal Weapon, Scrooge, which is a personal, guilty pleasure of mine. Hell, he gave us The Toy, another guilty pleasure of mine. This is not the way he should have. This is not the way this man's career should close out. This is not a film that honors the original movie. It does not honor the characters. It truly just went off into its own direction, completely forgetting all the things about the first movie that made it so special, and tried to make its own special place in a different direction. And once you start going down that schizophrenic path, you lose everything that made the entire series any good. Yeah. And I am so glad to be done talking about this movie.
This is one of the most painful experiences in my life. They're promoting you.
Captain Riggs. Captain Murtaugh.
Better reload. Think you can stay off the streets and out of trouble?
Yeah, absolutely.
And take aim. Because your number is up.
What happened?
Had some bad Chinese.
I gave it a 4.
You gave it a 4. What did you give the last one?
I believe I gave that one. I think
we both gave it a 3. Actually, so you actually think this one, as bad as it is still a little better than 3?
Oh no, you see, the thing is I was going to give it a 3. I gave it an extra 1 for Jet Li, and just for the irony.
Right.
Honestly, the biggest reason yes, we both gave the last one a 3. I gave this one a 4. Partially for the irony, and secondly because the only thing I'm going to give the movie credit for is that, unlike the last movie, which felt like it was put together by a bunch of, overdosing drug addicts and edited together like that, I kind of felt like at least, there was a motivation for the villain that made sense. There was, a plot that at least followed through. Just because it was shit doesn't mean that I can't appreciate that. Well, a slight improvement over the third one in the respect that at least it's trying to go somewhere, whereas the last one had no freaking clue from the first scene to the last scene where the hell it was going. So that's really the only reason why I'm giving it a 4. I just want to give it at least the littlest bit of credit, because there's not a hell of a lot of credit to give this movie. I mean, my Who Asked You, let's face it, this entire episode has been a Who Asked You.
Yeah. Does that mean you don't have one?
Oh, no, I still have one, but go on.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this, but I literally, again, I don't think I even need to say it. Jet Li is phenomenal. I enjoy a ton of his movies. I think he is fantastic. But I honestly do sort of feel like his presence in this movie is actually a net negative than a positive. As weird as that sounds, because again, I just feel like the filmmakers have nothing going on in this movie. There's nothing to offer. So they brought in Jet Li to essentially steal the show, which he absolutely does. But again, I just say to myself, but if you're going to just grab something else that doesn't fit in this film and present it as sort of your own, I almost feel like it's kind of a cheat. Like you can't, like, I mean, this movie feels like a ransom note. Like you just cut out something from something else and dropped it in here.
I like that.
You know, and we don't have compelling characters. We don't have anything interesting action wise going on. We got, you know, I mean, I mean, the action. I mean, the whole action scene with Riggs behind the trailer. It's just, oh boy, talk about just ham-fisted. I felt like as soon as you saw that trailer on the highway, you're like, all right, so I guess that's what this is going to be. They're going to go up to that trailer right there, and it's going to be all, and that's exactly what they did. And him again surfing behind it, like, just come on, like. It's people trying to, it just has this totally non-organic feel to everything. Everything is just ham-fisted and whatever. So yeah, I don't see Jet Li's presence as a positive in this. It's like I said, I mean, the stuff he's doing is good. And quite frankly, by the way, you know, you said before about how Jet Li, he's even there to act. He's there to sort of express some emotion. He wasn't just purely there to do martial arts. And I agree with you, but again, I kind of felt like it was the story is so schizophrenic that, I mean, he is the villain. He's the villain. So I felt like they probably just stuck in these scenes of him with the people he was trying to free, and you made him sympathetic. Well, wait a second. Well, what is this movie about then? I thought these are the bad guys who I'm supposed to hate because they're involved in slave trading and human trafficking. Why are you now sticking in these scenes to make this guy more sympathetic so that by the time Riggs and Murtaugh shows up at the end and Riggs starts yelling and showing, you know, oh, look, this is the guy, they're screwing you over. So now there's a shootout and Jet Li's people now are getting shot. Well, was I supposed to like those people or not like those people? And plus, by the way, there's a whole scene, which I thought was really out of place, where they actually show them cut to a place in China, right? And I couldn't even. And they show them sort of like hustling that old man into you know, some sort of prison. The guy steps on his glasses, and I'm like, and that was another scene where I'm going like, why is this here? Like, I mean, just aside from the fact that I felt like we just broke out of the Lethal Weapon universe yet again by cutting to someplace overseas for a sort of a nothing insert about just human trafficking sucks. I didn't really get it. And there was a whole symbolism that came up later when Jet Li gives him a new pair of glasses, etc. So again, I thought the whole mess was getting really convoluted and confusing at that point. Anyway, I'm kind of just off on another tangent when I'm supposed to be giving my score. I'm giving it a 2 because I felt like if I gave the last one a 3, there is no way I'm going up on this one. I'm not even staying the same. It's a low quality. I feel like how I felt with the last one, where I see Riggs, I see Murtaugh. It feels like they're in another movie, not their own movie, because the Lethal Weapon series, as far as I'm concerned, ended kind of halfway in Lethal Weapon 2. The whole thing is a mess. It's I've never ever this is the first time I didn't even see it in the theater. I mean, again, like I was a huge Lethal Weapon fan, and by the time I was done with 3, and I think I just saw the poster for 4, I said, all right, well, look, this series is dead. I didn't even see it in the theater. I don't even think I saw it too soon after it was available on video. Eventually I got around to it. I saw it. I thought it was pretty much exactly what I expected. It was terrible, and I've never seen it since. So I've never had any impulse to enjoy watching this movie. So giving it a 2.
All right. Well, then I'd be curious after that little diatribe, who asked you?
You know, I almost feel like you and I, and you'll probably agree that I've certainly spent way too much wind on this movie. Like, I felt like we've spent way too much air just talking about this movie, which is just a fluff piece of nonsense that should be forgotten. I could very simply just say, Riggs' haircut.
I knew you were going to go there too.
You knew the costume commander was not going to let that one pass. I mean, but I kind of feel like in a way that's sort of a good example of just the poor rushed quality of this film. Like, again, I don't know what project Mel Gibson was doing right before this. I'm sure he probably just said, look, I can't spend 6 months doing nothing, watching my hair grow. So he probably just said, all right, screw it. So look, Riggs is married now. He's settled down. He's having a kid. By now the guy's going to get a haircut. I get that. But yeah, that just sort of goes to exemplify that this is not a Lethal Weapon movie anymore. So what am I doing here? Why am I watching this movie? It's a Mel Gibson movie now. It's not a Martin Riggs movie. And I tell you what, I could just leave it there, but I think I'm actually going to give it to the boat scene with the shark in the boat. And because again, it's just so silly, schlocky. Like at this point, why again? That I feel like already I'm at the point in the movie where I'm saying to myself, what am I doing here? And I could have easily given it to that stupid RoboCop flamethrower scene in the beginning, which is just colossally stupid. Like I said, I mean, this is essentially a kid's movie with F-bombs. I don't know why they didn't just make it PG-13. So I'll go with that.
Good enough.
Yeah. What about you, my friend?
Well, I mean, Chris Rock was terrible.
Yep.
The nitrous interrogation scene was so damn painful and so damn shoehorned in and so damn we need to advance the plot so they figures out that this is going to be his son-in-law. Oh, let's just do it in this scene. I feel bad for the actor who played Benny because I've seen that actor in so many movies. He's always the heavy Chinese guy and so on and so forth. So it was nice to see him do like this lighthearted scene. So part of me was like, oh, good for you. But the rest of it just sucked. But really, the thing for me, the one that did it for me, the last scene, the last fight, Jet Li and Riggs and go under the water, and there's a car under there with a machine gun with working bullets. And I can't for the life of me remember how that car got there.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I tell you what, I probably didn't even really notice that because I felt like at this point I'm just so tuned out. Maybe I just missed it, but I think you're right.
I rewound the entire scene to see if maybe I missed something, if maybe a car went in or so on and so forth. But it's like, no, I don't see it. Something got edited out, and it's like Donner just said, yeah, whatever.
Right.
And to me, that is so indicative of the series itself at this point, where it's like, whatever, people will just buy it.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. And I remember even by that point, I remember thinking like, so wait a second. He just impaled Jet Li. He's been yanking him around by this thing that's going through him.
Right.
So I remember thinking like, it was almost like trying to kill a vampire. Like at this point, like now they're underwater. Jet Li's still struggling. You still need like a secret weapon to be able to kill him. Like you're correct. I mean, I don't get what that was about either.
Yeah, no, I don't know where it came from. I have no idea what the purpose of it was, but there it is. It was there. A plot device. A plot device was under the water waiting for Riggs to come along and get there. Because, like, it's one thing that if there was a car down there, it's like, oh, well, okay, yeah, fine. That's, it. But to find a working weapon under there, that feels like a huge oversight to have missed.
Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah. Again, like I said, I was so tuned out that for all I know, I could have missed how it got there, but yeah, who cares?
Yes, at this point, who cares? Because now we have to really find something funky. Hey, man, for your consideration. And I get the feeling we're both going to say pretty much the same thing.
Well, I'll tell you what. Two things. I'm going to let you go first because I'm curious too, because I have a hunch maybe not. But by the way, I can't believe I forgot to mention this part. This really should have been my Who Asked You? The scene with Riggs in the cemetery and the Froggy speech.
The Froggy speech is not my for your consideration, but go on.
I swear, I said to him, I mean, I'm watching that, and I said to myself, again, it's like I said before, how is this not written for 12-year-old boys? This like I'm saying to myself, this like the writers at this point, it's like, am I being pranked right now? I mean, like, I first of all, again, it's so weird to me that Richard Donner did all these films, because I remember that really, really great scene, not a lot of dialogue, didn't need it. Riggs visiting his wife at the cemetery at the end of the first one. I thought it was quick. It was to the point. It was really good stuff. And now we're kind of back. And again, I'm saying to myself, now that gravestone looks really familiar. Did they really go back to the same? Did they get the same? Either they got the same prop or went to the same. I mean, the location didn't look or feel the same, obviously, because I mean, it's the look of the film is different. It's all daylight. We don't care at this point. But anyway, I'm saying to myself, they went to the trouble to do that, to go back to that scene, and then you see Riggs is sort of talking again. Doesn't feel like the first film at all. But then when Joe Pesci comes along and does his thing, and I'm saying to myself, now look, I would have had no problem had Joe Pesci said something, told some story that kind of made Riggs kind of like, all right, I get what you're saying, and it makes sense and it works. He has to talk about a pet named Froggy. It was his best friend. It was a frog, and I'm like I said, are the writers pranking me at this point? You couldn't think of a better way to convey this story in a way that would not appeal to children who were watching Sesame Street. Like, I don't get what the point of this is. So yeah, how I didn't harp on that, I don't know.
How you still haven't given us a 4-year consideration? I don't know.
Well, like I said, let me let you go first. I'm curious to see what you say.
Oh, for God's sakes, it's Jet Li. He's the only thing in this movie that I thought was redeeming. That's it. There's nothing else in this movie that worked for me in the slightest bit. When he was on the screen, I was fine. The minute he was off the screen, it was all craptastic. So yeah. So if he's the only thing, and dude, it's going to be hard for you to disagree with that, only because you said every time I talk about Lethal Weapon 4, everybody always mentions Jet Li. So kind of proves my point.
well, listen, I'm not disagreeing, and I'm not telling you that you're wrong. You're absolutely correct. Look, if it's in the movie, it's fair game. So I can't disagree with what you're saying. I mean, I am, in what I'm about to say, I am willing. I understand that I'm not correct on this, but I really can't give it to Jet Li, because I keep saying to myself, like, if the movie, if like this movie stopped, like if I was sitting in the theater, right, and I'm watching a lame movie, and at some point during the middle, they threw in a cartoon that had nothing to do with the movie, and then we went back to the movie, I would probably jokingly walk back out and say, well, the cartoon was the best part, but it really wasn't part of the movie. And I really do just feel like that's kind of what this is. It's like them putting Jet Li in here because they've seen other movies and he was really good. I feel like there's probably a really great analogy where I've seen other films where they'd be doing sequels, doing whatever, and then like just one of the filmmakers, the weird, quirky producer, saw another movie that had this in it. Hey, let's put that in here because that was really cool. But the writers are going like, but that's not this movie. That wouldn't work, and they just do it anyway. And it's like, all right, look. I feel like Jet Li is like the robot from Rocky IV. You know, like that's. I almost feel like that. There you go. That is my parallel. That's kind of what this is. It doesn't fit. It looks cool, but that's not this movie. So
that's a bit harsh, but okay, bub. Okay.
Listen, you are you are right in saying, like, if it's in this movie, it's fair game. But I'm just gonna begrudgingly stick to my guns and say no. I'm not giving it to Jet Li because it doesn't count. It does. It's like to me, it's a cheat. What else I'm gonna pick? I don't know. but I'm not. I feel like I'm not giving it to Jet Li.
You see, now you're just being a brat. Now you're just being a brat kid. You're being a brat kid. Saying, no, I'm not giving it any credit.
I'm not. I'm holding my breath, and I'm not going to do it. I'll tell you. Even the part when Riggs goes, like early on, he's going home. He goes to his trailer, right? And I remember thinking, Like, first of all, props that somebody remembered that he actually had a dog before Lethal Weapon 3. Because I kind of felt like in Lethal Weapon 3, when they were doing this funny thing, oh, we already have a dog. Like, I'm like, didn't you forget that you have a dog at home already? So I thought, okay, like, well, at least somebody remembered to put 2 dogs in the house. But I looked at the house and I'm like, wait a second. Did they tear a hole in the trailer and kind of build a room off of the side of it?
You just can't stop, can you?
I can't. I really can't. Because I say to myself, like, again, these writers are so weird. Like, I feel like they're going home and giving themselves an A+, a gold star for continuity. We know that he lives in a trailer, so here's what we'll do. And I remember thinking, he cut his hair. Just get a different apartment. Like, at some point, just get an apartment because you're having. I don't know. You're right. I could do this all day. This movie is the definition of a nitpickable movie. It's just a lot of little things that just drive me bananas. How about this? The fact that the captain shows up at the end at the hospital. I'll just say that because I felt like at least they remembered that he's around and he's been in all. I think he's the only other one. Well, I shouldn't say that because the wife and the kids obviously have. But I felt like he's probably the only other peripheral character who's been in every movie so far. So I don't know. But then again, even the therapist, she's been in all of them. And I kind of felt like even the scene with Riggs and her annoyed me. I just felt like it was so irritating, that scene with her and yelling at Riggs for always pranking her and stuff. Kind of logical. I mean, again, I feel like the writers are giving themselves props for continuity, but just felt weird. So I'm like, whatever. That's all I got for you, dude.
All right. Now we're done. Okay,
we're putting a knife in it.
Exactly. That's it. Lethal Weapon is done. You poor man. You poor man. Please get some therapy. You need it. This movie personally hurt you worse than Lethal Weapon 3 did.
It's very similar in that respect. Yes. And again, I mean, honestly, yeah, silly as it is, but I was a giant fan of the first one, and reasonably happy with the second one. These last two, it's like, why do you take good franchises and just turn them into garbage? If you want to make more, go the extra mile and get a good script. Go the extra mile and do a good story. Why schlock it up like this? It's like I said, I mean, it's, going back to that second one when they had the poster that said the magic is back. It's like, you guys saw a different movie than I saw, because I don't quite get it.
You got the right to remain silent. You got the right to get an attorney. If you get Johnny Cochran, I'll kill you. How you doing? I'm Mel Gibson. Yeah, I look a little different, but it's the same old Mel.
How about this? Here's an upbeat way to end this. Next week, we get to talk about a good movie.
You're right. We do. Ladies and gentlemen, well, it's with mixed emotions I say this, because unfortunately I know where it goes. Next week, Joe and I are going to take our first crack at the classic, the amazing, yes, I'm already wearing my heart on my sleeve with this one, just as Joe was, Ghostbusters, the 1985 original.
And I got to tell you, I feel like it will be nice and refreshing, and it's nice too, by the way, because we are in the last weeks of October, so that should be kind of a good one to go out on to sort of do Halloween.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I mean, but we're gonna have to do Ghostbusters 2 after that, and then I hate you. I hate you,
dude. Listen.
I hate you.
Other than Mission Impossible, have we ever embarked on a franchise that didn't start high and slowly go down?
I hate you. Yeah, that's true. That is true. All right, but you know what? We take the abuse for our listeners. We hope you love us for it.
Oh, we certainly do. Well, like I said, I am at least looking forward to next week. So, my brother, thank you as always for letting me have a little vent session. Try to work out some things together.
I hope it was helpful for you, sir. Now, please do yourself a favor. Close the book on this. Leave it behind you. It's done. We don't have to go see it again. We don't.
This is true.
We don't.
This is true. We have to stop before I think of something else to just talk about.
Okay, just it's not your fault.
Thank you.
All right, and so until next week, sir. Great show as always. I miss you, my brother. Take care of yourself.
Same here, brother. Thank you again as always, and I will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube for spoiler-free reviews of new releases. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page on patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.